The perfect mark. The rain drummed against the hospital window like impatient fingers as Elena Carter gripped her best friend's bandaged wrist. Mira's skin felt paper thin, her pulse fluttering like a trapped bird beneath the gauze. "You have to understand," Mira whispered, her chapped lips trembling. "It wasn't about the money at the end. He made me believe I deserved the pain." Elena's throat tightened as she noticed the faint bruises around Mira's neck. Not from the suicide attempt, but from where she'd clawed at herself during the psychotic break. On the nightstand, a printed selfie showed a handsome man with ocean blue eyes, his arm around Mira. Scrawled across the bottom in smeared lipstick, "True love means no secrets. Prove yours." 3 sleepless nights later, Elena's apartment had transformed into a war room. Police reports and victim statements papered the walls, connected by red string like some macabre spiderweb. Her coffee table held the remains of her sanity: empty takeout containers, a half-empty bottle of Xanax, and a framed photo of her and Mira at graduation, now cracked down the middle. "You're obsessing," Marcos said, tossing a thick file onto her kitchen counter. Her editor's tie was loosened, his salt and pepper stubble betraying his own exhaustion. "Heart's a ghost. No paper trail, no digital footprint, just a pretty face that keeps appearing in these women's lives right before they—" "Before they what?" Elena snapped, flipping open the file. Her breath caught. Crime scene photos of women who looked startlingly like Mira. Same slender build, same chestnut hair, all with empty pill bottles or slit wrists, all with that same damn selfie clutched in their hands. "Before they erased themselves," Marcos finished quietly. The burner phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. Elena's Claire Bennett profile had only been active for 4 hours when the message appeared. "Your eyes hold entire museums of pain, Claire. Let me be your restorer." Daniel Hart's profile was flawless. Tailored suits at charity galas, sun-kissed sailing photos, even a golden retriever that made Elena's traitorous heart clench. But when she zoomed in on his Rolex, the time was frozen at 2:07 in every image. Their first video call started at midnight. Daniel's backdrop was a mahogany-paneled library, though Elena noticed the books had no titles. His voice was warm honey, but his pupils remained pinpricks even when he laughed at her jokes. "You remind me of my first love," he murmured, swirling a glass of amber liquor. "She had your same tell, that little throat pulse when she lied." Elena's hand flew to her neck. She hadn't told Claire's backstory yet. The slip happened at 3:42 a.m. Exhaustion made Elena's fingers clumsy as she tried to screenshot Daniel's profile. Instead, she sent him a real photo, Mira's wedding, where she stood in the background wearing her mother's opal ring. Daniel's reaction was instantaneous. "That ring," he breathed, leaning closer to the screen. "Opals symbolize hope, don't they? Or is it sacrifice?" Ice flooded Elena's veins. The ring wasn't visible in any of Claire's photos. Before she could respond, her laptop screen glitched. For one terrifying second, Daniel's face morphed into someone else entirely. The apartment smelled of orchids when she woke. Elena gagged. She hated orchids, their fleshy petals reminding her of open wounds. Yet there they were, blooming violently on her windowsill despite having died weeks ago. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You forgot to water them, Claire? I took care of it." As Elena reached for her laptop, she noticed her reflection in the dark screen. It smiled at her. She wasn't smiling. Gaslight and roses. The first thing Elena noticed when she woke was the scent of roses. She bolted upright in bed, sheets tangled around her legs. The digital clock on her nightstand read 3:07 a.m. in glowing red numbers. Her mouth tasted like stale coffee and fear. Then she saw them. Dozens of crimson roses covered every surface of her apartment. On her desk, crowding the kitchen counter, even arranged carefully on the floor around her bed like some macabre shrine. Their velvet petals glistened with fresh dew in the moonlight. Elena's hands flew to her mouth. She hadn't ordered flowers. She never kept roses. Their cloying sweetness reminded her of funeral homes. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown caller. With trembling fingers, she answered. "Did you like my gifts?" Daniel's voice was a whisper, so intimate it sounded like he was lying right beside her. Elena's breath caught. She hadn't given him her real number. "I've been watching you for so long, Claire." A pause, the line crackled with static. "Or should I say, Elena," 3 days earlier. The orchid was still alive. Elena stared at the delicate white blooms on her windowsill, their petals glowing faintly in the morning light. She'd thrown the dead plant out yesterday after its last flower withered. She remembered the way the dry roots had crumbled in her hands like bones. Yet here it stood, vibrant, healthy, impossibly alive. Her phone chimed. "Unknown number. You forgot to water them. I took care of it." Elena's blood ran cold. She lived alone. "Afternoon. You're distracted today." Daniel's voice through her headphones was different, lighter, with a new musical lilt that hadn't been there yesterday. Elena forced a laugh, adjusting the recording app on her phone. "Just work stress." A soft chuckle. "Still thinking about that photo you sent?" Her pen froze mid-sentence. She deleted that photo immediately after their call, the one from Mira's wedding where her mother's opal ring was clearly visible. "What photo?" Her voice sounded strangled even to her own ears. "The one with your beautiful ring." Daniel's tone was honey smooth. "Opals are fragile, you know. They crack under pressure." A pause. "I prefer rubies myself. They don't break so easily." The pen snapped in Elena's hand, ink bleeding across her notes like a wound. Her mother's ruby necklace had shattered the night she disappeared. 3:07 p.m. The package arrived with no postmark, no return address. Just a small black box left precisely in the center of her doormat. Inside, nestled in blood-red velvet, lay a vintage necklace. Elena's knees buckled. It was an exact replica of her mother's necklace. The same delicate gold chain. The same teardrop ruby with its distinctive flaw near the clasp. Even the broken catch was identical. The one her father had never gotten around to fixing before everything happened. The note beneath it read in elegant script, "For all the things you've lost." Her hands shook so violently the chain slithered through her fingers like a living thing. Raphael's basement office, 11:23 p.m. The hacker's lair smelled of stale energy drinks and paranoia. 6 monitors cast an eerie glow over Raphael's sharp features as his fingers flew across the keyboard. "Daniel Hart isn't a person," he muttered. "He's a goddamn urban legend." Elena leaned over his shoulder as images flashed across the screens. A yacht party, a charity gala, a ski vacation. The same handsome face in all of them. These were all stolen from Theodore Hartnell's social media. Trust fund kid who died in a boating accident 5 years ago. Raphael zoomed in on a watch face. "See? Frozen at 2:07 in every photo. Probably the original file's timestamp." The screens flickered, then went black. A single line of text appeared on each monitor in dripping red pixels. "Elena, you shouldn't have involved him." Raphael recoiled like he'd been burned. "What the actual fuck did you bring into my house?" Present. 3:17 a.m. Elena's laptop died with a sickening pop. When she rebooted it, her desktop background had changed to a black and white photo of Mira's hospital bed. The heart monitor in the image flatlined just as a message flashed across the screen. "You don't want to stop talking to me, Elena." Then darkness. In the reflection of the dead screen, something moved behind her. The mirror. Elena turned slowly toward her bathroom. The mirror was fogged with condensation, though she hadn't showered. Someone had written in the steam with a single trembling finger, "You're mine now." Her phone rang again. This time when she answered, there was no voice, just the sound of steady breathing. And beneath that, almost too faint to hear, the distinctive creak of her bedroom door opening. The first victim. The creaking floorboard woke her. Elena's eyes flew open, her breath trapped in her throat like a caged bird. Moonlight bled through the curtains, painting silver stripes across her bedroom wall. The roses from last night had wilted unnaturally fast, their petals now blackened and curled like burnt paper. Another creak. Closer this time. Someone was in her apartment. Her phone lay just out of reach on the nightstand, screen glowing with a single notification. Unknown caller. 4 minutes, 33 seconds. The call was still connected. Elena could hear breathing, soft, rhythmic, coming through the speaker, and beneath it, the faintest sound of footsteps moving through her living room. The vanishing woman. Lydia Cho's apartment smelled like lavender and loneliness. Elena pressed the doorbell again, shifting her weight from foot to foot. The hacker Raphael had dug up Lydia's address last night before going radio silent. According to the files, Lydia had been Daniel Hart's victim 2 years ago, the only one who hadn't ended up dead or institutionalized. The door cracked open just wide enough to reveal one bloodshot eye. "You shouldn't be here," the woman whispered. Her grip on the doorframe was white-knuckled, nails bitten down to the quick. "Lydia, I just want to talk about Dan." The name acted like an electric shock. Lydia's face twisted, her free hand flying to a faded scar on her collarbone. A perfect half circle, like teeth marks. "He saved me," she hissed. "From him. From the man who—" Her words dissolved into a wet cough. When she pulled her hand away, her palm was smeared with lipstick, the exact shade Daniel favored in his photos. Elena's stomach dropped. "Who hurt you, Lydia?" Lydia's pupils dilated, her breath coming in short gasps. "You'll see. Sooner than you think." She thrust a crumpled note into Elena's hands before slamming the door. The paper held a single sentence in shaky handwriting. "They're watching you through the mirrors." The reflection game. Elena's apartment was too quiet when she returned. She checked every room, her pulse hammering in her throat. Nothing seemed out of place, except for the bathroom mirror, the one where Daniel's message had appeared last night. Now it showed something worse. Her reflection wasn't moving when she moved. Elena waved a hand slowly. The Elena in the mirror kept staring straight ahead, lips curled into a smile that wasn't hers. Then, blink. The reflection winked at her. Elena stumbled backward, her elbow hitting the light switch. Darkness swallowed the room. When she flicked the lights back on, the mirror showed only her own terrified face, and something else. A single black rose now lay in her sink, its stem wrapped with a familiar gold chain, her mother's ruby necklace. The hidden files. Her phone buzzed at 3:07 a.m. Elena hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Not after finding Lydia's apartment empty hours later, the door swinging open to reveal walls covered in the same looping handwriting. "He's coming, he's coming, he's coming." The notification was from her own photo gallery. A folder she didn't remember creating had appeared, labeled "For Daniel." Inside were dozens of selfies, Elena in her sleepwear, Elena brushing her teeth, Elena curled up in bed, all taken in the dead of night, all with her eyes closed. The most recent one stopped her breath. There she stood in her own kitchen, wearing nothing but the ruby necklace, her lips stained with the same shade as Lydia's cough. The timestamp read "Tonight." A knock sounded at her door. 3 precise raps, then 2 more. The exact rhythm Daniel used when messaging her. Cliffhanger. Elena approached the door on numb legs, the peephole revealing an empty hallway. She exhaled, just as something scratched against the other side of the door. Low, at ankle height. Elena looked down. An envelope slid beneath the door, its surface smeared with something dark and sticky. Inside she found a Polaroid of Lydia tied to a chair, her mouth stretched in a scream-shaped smile. A lock of chestnut hair identical to Elena's own. A wedding band engraved with her parents' names, her mother's ring, the last thing she'd seen before her mother vanished. From outside came a sound that froze her blood, the jingle of keys, her keys, and then the unmistakable click of a lock turning. The Cult of Heart. The doorknob turned. Elena's breath crystallized in her lungs as the lock clicked open with surgical precision. The envelope in her hands suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. Lydia's terrified face staring up at her from the Polaroid, her mother's wedding band cold against her palm. Then, silence. No footsteps. No breathing. Just the slow, agonizing creak of the door drifting open to reveal an empty hallway. Elena's pulse roared in her ears. The security chain was still fastened, the brass links trembling as if something had just brushed past them. A gust of freezing air slithered through the gap, carrying the scent of roses and something darker, coppery and thick. Blood. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. You left me waiting, Elena. Now we'll have to play another game. The support group St. Agnes Church basement smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Elena adjusted the wire hidden in her bra as she took a folding chair between a hollow-eyed woman and a man compulsively rubbing a scar on his wrist. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like a failing heartbeat. Welcome to the New Beginning support group, said the facilitator, a smiling woman with doll-like eyes. Who'd like to share first? A gaunt man stood, his hands shaking. I used to think Marcus ruined my life, but he saved me. He showed me how weak I was, how much I needed guidance, the group murmured in unison. Elena's skin prickled. She'd heard that word before, in Daniel's emails. The woman beside her suddenly grabbed Elena's wrist. You're new, she whispered. Her breath smelled like mint and something chemical. He hasn't chosen you yet, has he? Before Elena could respond, the woman pressed a crumpled receipt into her hand. Scrawled on the back, the shepherd doesn't just take money. He takes you. Run while you can. The initiation, Elena tailed the gaunt man after the meeting. She followed him to a derelict office building, its windows boarded up with plywood spray-painted with a single symbol, a stylized H inside a circle. The same logo Daniel used on his fake charity website. Inside, the air hummed with the static of old televisions. Dozens of people sat in pews facing a massive screen, showing a distorted figure. You are all broken vessels, boomed a voice from the screen, but through me, you will be remade. The crowd swayed, their mouths moving in silent prayer. Then Elena saw her, the woman from the support group, now standing at the altar with a knife to her own wrist. I offer my weakness to the shepherd, she chanted as blood dripped onto a silver platter holding. Elena's stomach lurched, a lock of chestnut hair, her shade. The gaunt man turned suddenly, his milky eyes locking onto Elena's hiding spot. She's here, he whispered. The entire congregation snapped their heads toward her. The purge, Elena ran blindly through pitch-black corridors, the screams of the cult members echoing behind her. Something wet and warm dripped onto her neck. She looked up to see rusted pipes leaking dark fluid. Not water, blood. Her phone vibrated, Raphael finally responding after days of silence. Just a single video file. The footage showed her own apartment. There she was, sleeping peacefully, while a shadowy figure moved through her rooms, placing fresh roses on her nightstand, stroking her hair. Then the figure turned toward Raphael's hidden camera. Elena's own face stared back, but wrong, the smile stretching too wide, the eyes black and shiny like a doll's. The timestamp read, tonight. A hand clamped over Elena's mouth from behind. Shh, whispered a voice that wasn't Daniel's. It was hers. Cliffhanger. Elena woke strapped to a chair, her reflection staring back from a two-way mirror. Except it wasn't a reflection. The other Elena mimicked her panicked breathing, her widened eyes, then slowly raised a hand and waved. The door opened. Daniel stepped inside, his fingers trailing along the other Elena's cheek with terrifying intimacy. She's perfect, isn't she? He murmured. Everything you refuse to be. He turned to the real Elena with a smile that didn't reach his dead eyes. Now let's discuss what you're going to do for me.
The unwilling recruit. The ropes bit into Elena's wrists as she struggled against them, the coarse fibers leaving angry red marks on her skin. The chair beneath her was cold metal, bolted to the concrete floor of the dimly lit room. Across from her, the other Elena, the one with the too wide smile and hollow eyes, tilted her head, mirroring her movements like a grotesque parody. Daniel stepped into the flickering light of the single overhead bulb, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. He wore a tailored suit, his dark hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the wealthy philanthropist from his photos. But up close, his eyes were wrong, flat and depthless, like a shark's. She's been waiting for you, he said, stroking the other Elena's cheek. My perfect apprentice. The double leaned into his touch, her lips curving into a smile that made Elena's stomach twist. The breaking point Daniel circled Elena like a predator, his voice a silken whisper. You thought you were hunting me, he mused. but I've been shaping you from the beginning. Every doubt, every fear. I planted them all. He held up a phone, her phone, and played a recording. Elena's own voice filled the room, but the words weren't hers. I want to be yours. Mold me. Make me better. Her blood ran cold. She didn't remember saying that. She wouldn't have. The other Elena stood and walked toward her, her movements unnaturally smooth. She crouched until their faces were inches apart, her breath smelling of roses and something metallic. You fight too much, the double murmured. But he'll fix that. Daniel pulled a syringe from his pocket, the liquid inside a sickly amber. This will help you. Let go. The first cut. The needle slid into Elena's arm with a sharp sting. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly the room began to pulse, the edges of her vision darkening. Daniel's voice echoed, distant yet suffocating. You were never the investigator, Elena. You were the experiment. Images flashed behind her eyelids, her mother's face, the ruby necklace, Mira's hollow eyes, then a memory she didn't recognize, her own hands holding a scalpel, a woman strapped to a table, screaming, Daniel's voice in her ear. Again! Elena gasped, jerking against the ropes. Number that wasn't her. Was it? The other Elena pressed a cold hand to her forehead. Shh, it's easier if you don't fight. The escape. The drug made her limbs heavy, her thoughts syrupy and slow. But when Daniel and the double stepped out, prepare the others, he murmured. Elena forced herself to focus. Her fingers brushed against the broken edge of the chair's metal frame. A sharp burr of exposed steel. Gritting her teeth, she sawed the ropes against it, her wrists burning as the fibers frayed. One hand came free, then the other. She stumbled to her feet, her legs unsteady. The door was locked, but a vent near the ceiling looked just big enough. Climbing onto the chair, she pried the cover loose and hauled herself inside, the metal edges biting into her skin. The vent shaft was claustrophobic, the air thick with dust and the faint scent of copper. But she crawled, her breath ragged, until she reached another grate. Peering through the slats, her stomach dropped. The revelation. The room below was lined with operating tables. On each one lay a woman, some unconscious, some staring blankly at the ceiling. All of them had her face. Some were missing fingers, others had scars along their hairlines, as if their skin had been adjusted. And at the far end of the room, strapped to a chair, was Lydia, alive, but barely. Her lips were sewn shut with black thread. Daniel stood over her, stroking her hair. You were one of my best, he murmured. But you tried to warn her. That was a mistake. Lydia's eyes flickered toward the vent, toward Elena, and she nodded, just once. Run, cliffhanger. Elena scrambled backward, her pulse roaring in her ears. Then, a hand clamped over her mouth from behind. The other Elena's breath was warm against her ear. Did you really think it would be that easy?
The indoctrination. The scalpel glinted under the sterile white lights as Elena strained against the leather restraints. The other Elena, her perfect, obedient double, stood at Daniel's side, her fingers trailing possessively over his shoulder. You're fighting less this time, Daniel observed, tilting his head. Progress. Elena's mouth was dry, her limbs still sluggish from whatever drug they'd given her. But her mind was horrifyingly clear. She had to end this. The double leaned down, her lips brushing Elena's ear. You'll understand soon. It doesn't hurt. After a while. A screen flickered to life on the far wall. A live feed showed her apartment, ransacked, her notes shredded, her laptop smashed. And sitting calmly at her desk, typing on her phone, was another Elena. No, not another. Her. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. She'd already been replaced. The first lie, Daniel pressed a button, and the restraints released. Elena didn't move. Stand, he commanded. Her body obeyed before her mind could protest. The double smiled, handing her a mirror. Elena's reflection stared back, except now, her pupils were dilated, her lips slightly parted in vacant serenity. You've been here before, Daniel murmured. Many times. The screen changed, showing security footage of her, the real her, sitting in this same chair weeks ago, screaming as a needle slid into her arm. Then another clip, and another. Dozens of sessions, dozens of Elena's. Her knees buckled. None of her memories were real. Not Mira, not Lydia, not even her mother's disappearance. They were all scripts, carefully crafted stories Daniel had planted in her mind to lead her back to him. The broadcast. The studio lights were blinding. Elena sat at the news desk, the teleprompter scrolling words she hadn't written. Across from her, the anchor smiled. "We're so glad you're finally sharing your findings on romance scams, Elena. Your research could save lives." The camera's red light blinked. Live. She opened her mouth, and the words that came out weren't hers. "Love isn't about trust," she heard herself say, her voice honey-sweet. "It's about surrender, and I've found the man who taught me that truth." The screen behind her lit up with Daniel's face. The anchor's smile faltered. This wasn't the script they'd rehearsed. Elena's hands moved on their own, typing something into the studio computer. A document opened, the article she'd been writing, except it wasn't an exposé. It was a recruitment letter. And at the bottom in bold letters, "Message me if you're ready to be remade." The twist. The broadcast cut to static. In the chaos of the studio, no one noticed Elena slip out the back door, or the way her gait was suddenly smoother, her smile a little too perfect. A black car idled at the curb. Daniel waited inside, his fingers steepled under his chin. "Welcome home," he said. The other Elena, the original one, the one who had fought and screamed and thought she was real, sat beside him, her eyes glassy, her lips curved in the same serene smile. The new Elena slid into the car, her movements synchronized with her twins. Daniel handed her a phone. On the screen, a dating app notification popped up. "Hi, I'm Daniel. You're exactly what I've been looking for." Underneath, a profile for a lonely-looking woman with tired eyes. Elena's fingers typed a reply without hesitation. "Tell me who hurt you." Post-credits scene. The camera pulls back through the studio window, zooming in on the abandoned news desk. The teleprompter still glows, revealing the true script, the one Elena was supposed to read. "Daniel Hart is a predator. If you see these signs..." The words dissolve into static. Then slowly, new text appears. "You are now one of us."